Imagine a frozen forest in the heart of Russia. The year is 1613. Foreign invaders marched through the snow searching for a young prince who could become a Tsar, that is Tsar, which is like their king. And in their path stands not a warrior, not a nobleman, but a simple peasant named Ivan Susanin. What follows is a tale of loyalty and sacrifice, so powerful it would echo through Russian history for centuries, sung in operas, carved into monuments, and whispered around firesides. Tonight we walk with Susanin into that forest and into legend. The winter of 1613 was one of those Russian winters that swallowed whole armies. The time of troubles, as people later call it, had left the land broken and bleeding. For more than a decade, Russia had been without a true Tsar. Famine had killed millions, foreign soldiers had marched into Moscow, and pretenders to the throne rose and fell like shadows. Villages whispered of doom, monasteries prayed for salvation, and the people, exhausted, hungry, and desperate, longed for a leader who could bind the country back together. That man was Mikhail Romanov, a boy of just 16, hidden in the forest near Kostroma. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth had other plans though. Their scouts and soldiers, well trained and ruthless, had learned that the new Tsar was hiding somewhere near the Pativ monastery. And so they descended upon the frozen roads, determined to drag him out and crush the fragile rebirth of Russia. It is here that we meet Ivan Susanin, a man who on paper was unremarkable. He was no prince, he was no noble, he was no warrior. He was just a peasant from the small village of Dominino, known for his rough hands and honest work. But history often bends around the least expected soldiers, and on that winter's day, fate placed Ivan before the Polish scouts. They ordered him to guide them to the Tsar. Refusal was not an option, the penalty would have been death. So Susan nodded, wrapped himself tighter in his sheepskin coat, and began to walk. The soldiers followed, their boots crunching over frozen ground, their weapons glinting in the pale winter sun. But Susain did not lead them to the monastery. Instead, he led them deeper and deeper into the impenetrable forest of Kostroma, where snow buried the paths and the trees themselves seemed to conspire against intruders. Here, the legend diverges into whispers. Some say Susain knowingly sacrificed himself, luring the soldiers into the swamp until they lost their way. Others insist he misled them under torture, refusing to betray the Tsar's hiding place. Either way, the outcome is the same. The Polish soldiers perished in the forest, their hopes of capturing Mikhail Romanov drowned in snow and silence. Susain himself was tortured and killed, but not before securing the survival of the boy who would become the first Tsar of the Romanov dynasty, a dynasty that ruled Russia for more than 300 years. Unlike many folktales that vanish into hearsay, Susanin's history is anchored in record. In 1619, Tsar Mikhail granted Susain's son-in-law, Bogdan Sobinin, lands and privileges for his father-in-law's sacrifice. Later, decrees in 1641 and 1691 repeated the honor, enshrining Susanin's name not only in folklore, but in the official history of the state. By the 19th century, he was celebrated as the ultimate symbol of loyalty, a peasant who gave his life to protect the Tsar. But Susain's memory did not stop at charters. In 1836, Russia's most famous composer, Mikhail Glinka, debuted his opera, A Life for the Tsar, telling Susain's story in music. The opera was a sensation, fusing Russian folk melodies with grandeur, and it established Russian opera as a serious art form. Susanin's sacrifice became more than a tale. It became a national myth, sung in theaters from Moscow to St. Petersburg. A few years later, in 1838, a grand monument was erected in Kostroma. At its heart stood a towering column with Susain kneeling in prayer at its base, the embodiment of faith, loyalty, and sacrifice. For nearly a century, it loomed as a reminder that even the humblest man could shape the destiny of nations. Though the Bolsheviks later tore it down, declaring it too bound to monarchy, the story refused to die. In the 1960s, another statue rose in Kostroma, restoring Susanin to his rightful place in the landscape of Russian memory. Every legend grows in its telling, and Susain is no exception. To Russians, he became a cultural touchstone. The idiom, To play the Susanin, meaning to mislead or lead someone astray, entered common speech, a twist of irony born of his sacrifice. In folk lyrics, his name appeared as a half-comic, half-reverent figure. Even today, ask a Russian schoolchild who Ivan Susanin was, and they will tell you he is the man who saved the Tsar. Historians, of course, debate, was Susan a willing martyr or an unlucky victim caught by chance? Was the forest his weapon, or did he die in confusion? The truth has blood, stitched together by centuries of retelling. But as with all great legends, the power is not in what can be proven, but in what endures. More than 4 centuries later, Susain's presence lingers. The Kostroma monument stands tall, drawing visitors who trace the story of a man who gave his life for something larger than himself. Streets, schools, and districts bear his name. The opera A Life for the Tsar is still performed, though Soviet authorities once retitled it Ivan Susanin to strip away its monarchist overtones. In Russian culture, Susain's tale is not just a history, it is morality, patriotism, and identity woven into one. He is remembered as a man who had no armor, no sword, no crown, yet true loyalty and sacrifice altered the course of his nation's destiny. And today, if you travel to Kostroma in the deep of winter, the forest still stretches wild and endless. Pines creak in the wind, snow hushes the earth, and shadows move like specters through the trees. In that silence, one can imagine Susanin trudging forward, a line of soldiers behind him, each step deeper into doom. Did he know he was saving a dynasty? Did he feel fear? Or was his heart steady with faith? We will never know, but we know this. Because of Ivan Susanin, the Romanovs survived. Because of him, a dynasty ruled Russia for 3 centuries. Because of him, a name, a peasant's name, was etched into stone, song, and story. And so, like the forest that swallowed the soldiers whole, his legend will live on, vast and unbroken. And so, Ivan Susanin never walked back out of the forest, but his name did. It lived on in the crown of the Romanovs he helped to secure. He lived on in songs, and he lived on in countless stories told by generations of Russians. Was he a martyr who chose death to save his Tsar, or was he simply swept into a moment larger than himself? We will never know. History gives us the facts, but legends give us meaning. And in Susanin's case, the legend of a man who gave everything for loyalty still walks beside Russia today. I'm your host, Whimsical Amy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share. Let me know what you guys think. Signing out.